Hello and welcome to LCFC Radio's Matchday Live here at King Power Stadium for Leicester City against Manchester City.
What a goal from Ricardo Pereira!
After draws with Chelsea here at King Power Stadium and away at Wolves, the Foxes are looking to get back to winning ways this afternoon. It's Leicester against Man City, and you can hear it all right here on Matchday Live.
It's Vardy! Saved by Kasper Schmeichel. Oh, what an absolute cracker from Harvey Barnes!
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Brendan Rodgers makes 3 changes to the Foxes 11 that took the field at Wolves 8 days ago. He also switches formation by implementing a back 3. One change was enforced due to the suspension of Hamza Chowdhury. The other 2 alterations see Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez move to the bench. Incoming are Christian Fuchs, Dennis Pratt, and against his former club, Kelechi Iheanacho. Still no place for lone recruit Ryan Bennett in the matchday squad, but there is for Matty James. He's amongst the substitutes, having not played a Premier League game for nearly 2 years due to injury. Kasper Schmeichel then in the Leicester City goal. The back 3, Johnny Evans, Kagawa Soyuncu and Christian Fuchs. The wing-backs, Ricardo and Ben Chilwell. In the midfield, it's Dennis Pratt, Yuri Tillemans and James Maddison. Jamie Vardy supported by Kelechi Iheanacho up front. The Leicester subs are Danny Ward, James Justin, Wes Morgan, Matty James, Mark Albrighton, Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez. 3 changes also for Pep Guardiola's Manchester City following a routine victory at home to West Ham in the week. Nicolas Otamendi, David Silva and Gabriel Jesus dropped to the bench. Coming in are Fernandinho, Ilkay Gundogan and former Leicester City favourite Riyad Mahrez. Edison is their goalkeeper. The defence of Kyle Walker, Emerick Laporte, Fernandinho and Benjamin Mendy. The midfield of Rodri, Ilkay Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne. A front 3 of Mahrez, Sergio Aguero and Bernardo Silva. The City subs, Claudio Bravo, Nicolas Otamendi, John Stones, João Cancelo, David Silva, Phil Foden and Gabriel Jesus.
Thank you very much, John. Yes, welcome along to Matchday Live here on LCFC Radio at King Power Stadium. With me, Dan Bates, sat alongside me as ever is Gerry Taggart to look ahead to this Saturday evening game between Leicester City and Manchester City in the Premier League. Gerry, 2 of your former clubs, and it's set to be a cracker this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this one. You know, 2 teams sitting, you know, in second and third place, and have had their issues, it's fair to say, this season, both sides. But on the flip side, I've also been very, very excited to watch both teams, and I think everyone's hoping and praying that we see another, you know, we see a game with both teams going full tilt. Obviously, for the neutral, we want to see Leicester win this one, but you want to see a real cracker of a game, that's for sure.
There was a lot of excitement, wasn't there, going into the reverse fixture at the Etihad just before Christmas, and Leicester obviously took the lead in that game, but on their day, Manchester City probably put in the best performance of their season that night.
Yeah, and that's Manchester City for you in a nutshell this season. As I said before, you know, they have had their trials and tribulations. Results haven't gone their way as they would like. You know, they've been beaten at home, especially on more than one occasion. But on their day, you have to say, you know, basically a lack of consistency have cost Manchester City, but on their day, then they're still a flamboyant, aggressive attacking team who can turn over anybody, you know, more than capable. And as I've said to you before, are more than capable of turning up today and pulling out a result a la Liverpool when they came here to King Power Stadium. And that was probably the most complete performance I've seen from a Premier League side in a number of years here at King Power. And Manchester City are one of those teams that are capable of pulling one of those games off. So that will be the biggest concern for Brendan Rodgers, and that's probably one of the reasons why, with the squad and with some players missing, you see him revert to a back 3.
Conversely to that, the thought that Manchester City could come here and do what Liverpool did do on Boxing Day. Brendan Rodgers will be saying to his group, let's not let that happen again. Let's prove that we can beat Manchester City. Leicester beat Man City here, of course, this time last season.
No, absolutely. I think, you know, tactically, you know, he probably went out against Liverpool and thought, yeah, we can have a right good go at them here, or we can, no, fancy our chances against Liverpool, even though, you know, they're top of the league. By that stage, they weren't running away with the league, but they had a healthy points lead in the table. And as I said, it was probably the most complete performance. With Manchester City, as we spoke about before, they have had a few ups and downs, but as far as their overall game, when they hit top gear, then they're probably still the most attractive side in the league to watch, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, Liverpool, you have to say, probably work harder than Manchester City, but there's no doubt that Manchester City are still the most flamboyant footballing team out there.
Do you think then, you already touched upon Leicester's team lineup, if you missed John Dunn's reading out the teams, Leicester are 3 at the back this evening here at King Power Stadium. So Soyuncu, Johnny Evans, Christian Fuchs as a central 3, obviously then with Ricardo and Ben Chilwell either side as wing-backs. It doesn't come as too much of a surprise really, Gerry, does it, considering the personnel that Leicester have missing?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, you look at that midfield area, there's no Wilfred Ndidi, there's no Hamza Chowdhury, there's no natural defensive midfield player in there who's going to hold it. So Brendan's had counteracting that by putting an extra centre half in. Well, that's an opinion, obviously. He might have just gone completely different, but obviously with Wilfred not fully fit, Hamza, you know, obviously too many yellow cards, he's missing today because of that. Then the train of thought is, well, if I can't shore up that defensive midfield slot, I'm going to have to do it in defence and make sure that our 3 centre halves stay narrow and stop Manchester City coming through the middle. Of course, on the flip side of that, when you go back to the game at the Etihad, then it was the wide players that did all the damage in that game. And so that is a cause for concern as far as Ben Chilwell and Ricardo, who are playing as wing backs. And we know when Leicester get the ball, they are going to be our main outlets going forward. So it's all about the transitional period between, you know, when Manchester City turn the ball over and gain possession. How does that affect the likes of Chilwell, Ricardo, Christian Fuchs, we assume is going to play on the left-hand side of that 3-man centre-half, defensive centre-half partnership, and Soyuncu on the right. So that's when the game really, you're going to start to see real big moments in the game, potentially.
How different is it from a midfielder's point of view when you've got 3 at the back behind you rather than a 2? Because if it was the normal 2 and Leicester played with that normal defensive midfield role that Wilfred Ndidi usually plays, if Dennis Praet then had to play that one, he isn't playing that one now because it's 3 at the back. How different is that for him then in that role?
Yeah, I think the whole psyche has to change and the setup. You know, when you have a 2-man, Brendan likes to play with 2 centre halves and 1 holding midfielder. Okay, now he's probably going to play with 3 centre halves and 2 holding midfielders, and with James Maddison in a little pocket of space where he likes to be, supporting the front 2, and all the width coming from the 2 wing backs, who will essentially play, you know, as far up the pitch as possible. One of those 2 midfielders will break and will join in the play as and when, but I think from a defensive side, you've got a 5-man solid defensive central partnership between the 3 centre halves, and obviously you've got Tielemans and Dennis Praet in there. Now, if he goes with Tielemans and Maddison attacking midfielders, then Dennis Praet becomes an integral part, because when the ball goes wide and the 2 attacking midfielders, i.e. Tielemans and Maddison, are out of position and the ball goes in the wide areas, then you're asking your centre halves to make a decision whether or not they go out and help the wing backs. Then that's where Dennis Praet becomes integral, to make sure he fills gaps that are left by, you know, either the centre halves or by the wing backs.
One thing that game at the Etihad showed us was obviously the quality of Kevin De Bruyne. We all know how good he is, but he was scintillating that evening, and he pulled out to the right hand side a lot, didn't he? So do you think that midfield 3 potentially could help stop that? Because the talk after that game was, had Pep Guardiola told Kevin De Bruyne to do that to avoid Wilfred Ndidi in the middle of the pitch?
Mm-hmm.
So now, if Kevin De Bruyne does that again, there's 3 in there.
Again, it all boils down to whether he goes 3-4-3 or, you know, he goes with with Maddison in a little pocket of space on his whole, supporting Vardy and Iheanacho. And he has the two sitting midfielders in front of the three centre halves. If he only has one, then the way Manchester City play, it's going to be very difficult to cope with, because what you're going to have to do then is tell one of your centre halves to come out of their slots, i.e. come out of position into an area of the pitch where centre halves don't want to go invariably, and go and pick up a Kevin De Bruyne. We know that De Bruyne likes to float around. He's basically given a free role, De Bruyne, to go. He plays almost at times as a second centre forward, but he doesn't always play up against the centre halves. As you rightly said, he pulls out wide, but he's always at the top end of the pitch when Manchester City are in possession of the ball and have good possession in the attacking half of the pitch. So it's a bit of a conundrum for the players. It's all right setting it up on paper, which Brendan will have done. There's no doubt about that. He'll have given the scenarios, as many scenarios as possible, about trying to stop someone like Kevin De Bruyne. But when you actually get on the pitch, Kevin De Bruyne is so clever in realising where the spaces are and where he can hit the opposition, that he doesn't play a conventional role. And that's the bit that hurts oppositions.
I was going to say, is it up then to the likes of James Maddison and Gerry Tielemans to push forward whenever they can to make Kevin De Bruyne drop in and maybe be more defensive than what he'd usually be? But you look at the Man City team, they've got Rodri in there, they've got Gundogan in there, so they've probably got that defensive type cover in the middle.
The thing is, you have Gundogan and you have De Bruyne always playing between the lines. Okay, so that's their starting position, is in between that midfield line and the back line. And from there, you've got to work out, how do we stop them getting on the ball? Whose job is it that when the ball goes to them, who engages them? And that is the key. The communication between the three centre halves and the one, the two, or the three central midfielders has to be key. Because if it isn't, they will find the space in between the lines. And that's where players like De Bruyne come into his own. So for me, it's all about the communication. It doesn't really matter where he stands on the pitch. It's all about whose job it is to go and engage with players like Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne. And that is key, the communication.
Gerry's brought up that defeat to Liverpool on Boxing Day, of course, here at King Power Stadium. But the year before, on Boxing Day, it was a fantastic evening for Leicester City, who beat Manchester City here 2-1 thanks to that late Ricardo strike.
So the stage is set for another stamina taxing test of Leicester City's Christmas credentials. Found Aguero. Here is Aguero looking for the through ball. Chance for Manchester City. Flag stays down. And they get the goal, and it's Bernardo Silva. And this time they've found the space. 13 gone. Manchester City get their noses in front. Here's Maddison. Maddison then to Jamie Vardy. Vardy trying to get into the box, stood up by John Stones. Vardy with the ball to the back post. Marco Brighton has scored! Brilliant work! Jamie Vardy on target on Saturday. This time the goal provider, and it's Marco Brighton. Only his second in the Premier League this season. Equaliser for Leicester City. What a ball that was from Jamie Vardy. Ball hung up to the back post, and all Brighton with the cushioned header beyond Edison. Leicester City 1, Manchester City 1. Inside the final 10 on Boxing Day, here at King Power Stadium, still one apiece. All Brighton with the delivery. Ricardo shoot, is the try, cover it! What a goal from Ricardo Pereira! Brilliant effort to put Leicester City ahead on 81 minutes. And the Portugal international has just let fly a right-footed strike from Ricardo. He's third in the Premier League so far this season, and the Foxes go in front. Leicester City 2, Manchester City 1.
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic evening, wasn't it, Gerry? Christmas 2018 will be remembered by these Leicester fans for that fantastic victory over Man City.
We've always seemed to have great games here, whether we win or lose. They're always exciting games against Manchester City, because I think both Man City play a style of football that suits Leicester. You know, it gives Leicester an opportunity to go and express themselves. And you could basically say it boils down to who scores the most goals. But, you know, that was a great occasion, and what a strike from Ricardo as well to win it. Fantastic. And as I say, this is probably the one game I look forward to the most, because invariably it's always a humdinger of a game.
And as you say, it wasn't just the league games either here. You think about the two quarter-finals in the Carabao Cup, obviously both going to penalties and unfortunately going the way of Manchester City on both of those occasions, but still it underlines the fact that when these two teams seem to play each other at this stadium, it's a cracker.
No, absolutely. And, you know, there's always, you know, whether there's a lack of goals, which invariably there isn't, there's always something riding on. There's always a lot of attention in the game. There's always a lot of controversy in the game. And it's an absolute pleasure to come and watch them, I have to say. And as I say, it's probably the one game that always sticks out, the one I want to, not because obviously I play for both clubs, but just because invariably the games are really, really good games of football, lots of excitement, and on many of occasions, barring the two cup games, lots of goals.
Going back to that game on Boxing Day and that win for Leicester, what do you think they'll have learned from that? Because it was obviously a very different Leicester team, but you could argue it was a better Man City team back then than what they are now.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. You know, obviously the stats say that Man City were a better team back then. I don't think they'll learn anything from that. They'll have to take the lessons from going to the Etihad. And it's the style of play that they take the lessons out of, you know, for me. And what they're also going to have to learn is when they're in possession of the ball, they have to be better with it than they were at the Etihad. You know, we've seen with the opening goal a great bit of counter-attacking football. Then after that, you know, there wasn't a lot of passing phases that Leicester put together. And when they did, it was probably too late in the game for them to get back. Man City had always had that, by that time, had that 2-goal advantage. And we're just managing the game by then. So it's a case of, obviously you've got to stop Man City. They're the better team on paper. They're the better team because the league says so. They've got to, you know, you go through the list of their squad, it's just quite ridiculous. The people on the bench were getting, well, half of them were getting every Premier League team, every other Premier League team. So you have to take that into consideration when you're setting your team up. But I think the main point for Brendan is when we are attacking, because we will get possession of the ball, we will get into Manchester City's half, we will cause them problems, but we have to be better in possession if we're going to continually do that and continually put Manchester City under pressure and keep them out of our half of the pitch.
Well, let's get some insight then from one of the players that will be hoping to do exactly that for the Foxes today. That is, of course, James Maddison. He was asked for his thoughts on facing Manchester City.
Fine, confident. We've had a very good session today. The lads look sharp, and obviously we played City not too long ago. I think it was maybe the back end of December we played them, and they were very, very good on the day. And we don't want to feel like that again. I felt like, especially towards the end, we were almost chasing shadows at one point. But listen, they're one of the best teams in the world. They won the treble last year, didn't they? So it's not very often teams win three domestic trophies in 1 year. So we're not naive enough to go in thinking we can just go and attack and we'll win the game at home, because they have such big threats. But watched them last night, they're in good form. They obviously, the stuff about the ban in Europe and stuff doesn't seem to have affected them on the pitch because they were outstanding last night. So we know we're in for a tough game, but we'll be ready. We've looked good in training. So
James Maddison, obviously they're very complimentary of Manchester City, and rightly so, Gerry, because as he said, they won the domestic treble last season. Yes, maybe they've not been as good this season as what they were in previous campaigns, but they're still an incredibly talented team. So it's about Leicester and James Maddison taking the game to them and saying, we've already beaten them once here, we can certainly do it again.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you look back, let's go back this season, and I think going into that game, I think Leicester give themselves a genuine chance of getting something from it. But then obviously the reality struck that after that game they were outplayed and outclassed, and so you have to hold your hands up sometimes, say that, you know, on the day they were a better team. But that, and so that's probably why you're hearing James being so complimentary, because, you know, after that game he's probably going, well, hold on a minute, they're not as dodgy as everybody thinks they are. They're still a class act. But it's a key. I think obviously where Manchester City problems have lied this season have been a bit inconsistent. It's as simple as that. They have had serious injuries to Laporte, who came in. He's back fit now, but you know, you've got Otamendi on the bench. They've brought in Rodri. They've put Fernandinho in at centre half, who's done okay for them, but you know, has a serious lack of pace, you have to say. And so that's probably why you're seeing, you know, a majority of Manchester City's issues this year, because they haven't had a settled side, unlike the likes of Liverpool throughout this season. Now, whether or not Pep Guardiola has a settled team, and whether, you know, and we see that Fernandinho just slotting in there as and when at centre half until now in the end of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But you have to say the recent results have been decent for Manchester City, apart from obviously, you know, getting beat off Spurs.
If you're listening in before you head to King Power Stadium, then pack extra layers, because the rain and the wind here, Gerry, you can see it. The rain coming through the floodlights it's being sprayed everywhere, isn't it, by this wind? It's horrendous conditions here inside King Power Stadium, so do make sure you wrap up warm.
Great playing conditions, though.
You think? Certainly for getting into challenges.
Well, if you're playing against Man City, it's great playing conditions, because, you know, with a blustery win like this could hamper the type of football that they want to play, and that will hopefully play into Leicester's hands.
Two up front, obviously, for Leicester City, and just as I'm talking, the players themselves are heading out for their warm-ups here on this blustery and rainy pitch. Jamie Vardy, the first one out there, always sprints out for his warm-up. He scored 5 goals in his last 7 league appearances against Manchester City. He'll be confident. He always likes playing against the big top teams, doesn't he, Gerry? So again, he could be influential this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, you know, we talk about Manchester City, you know, suiting Leicester's style of play, and when I say that, you know, I involve Jamie Vardy in that conversation, because what Manchester City like to do is they like to push high up the pitch when they're in possession of the ball, so everyone then has a chance of becoming involved in the attacking game. And there's no one better in the league at peeling off and standing on the shoulder of the last defender than Jamie Vardy, waiting for that ball to be played in behind. Textbook goal at Manchester City at the Etihad, with a ball in behind from him. And as we've seen, Manchester City lack that pace in the back line to cope with Jamie Vardy. So he'll know exactly what he needs to do today to try and get on the score sheet. It's whether or not that supply line can come to him quickly enough and at the right pace, right tempo.
And 2 of them up front, he's got Kelechi and Nacho next to him, which we saw worked very well at Aston Villa, didn't it, at Villa Park? That's probably the game that stands out for the 2 of them together.
Well, yeah, and I was actually surprised that Kelechi didn't get minutes on the pitch, probably because of the sending off, you would have to say, is probably one of the reasons why he didn't come on. But he can, you know, find himself a little bit unlucky that he didn't get on, but today he starts. So, you know, that's, you know, it's good management from Brendan. Okay, you didn't get on last week, but you're starting today against your old club. So, big day for Kelechi and Nacho. Well, as you said, rightly said, in the past we've seen that partnership work between the 2 of them.
Well, let's hear again then from James Maddison. He's been discussing the squad's approach to the final 12 games of the season.
It's about, especially this time of the season, accumulating as many points as possible. And I know it. You don't get extra points because it's the business end of the season, but now's when it matters. That's why they call it the business end, because this is when pressure gets put on games. At the start of the season, sometimes you can play without pressure because you've got so many games left. There's only 12 left now for every team. So teams, whether it's fighting for relegation, fighting for the title, fighting for the Champions League, fighting for Europe, every point now is massive. And that's why I think the point at Wolves last week, especially when we went down to 10 men, was a fantastic point. And come the end of the season, I think little points that you pick up here and there will be very important for us.
That's James Maddison there, of course, Gerry, again speaking ahead of the game, and he was talking about the business end of the season, and when it gets to that real pressure situations in games, does it when it is nearer the end of the season, does it become an extra thing that's in your head? Do you start thinking even during an in-game situation that, okay, every point now probably matters even more than it did earlier in the season? Is there extra pressure on you?
Everybody's different. For me personally, no. Because every game's as important as any other game. But, you know, what James is talking about is, they call it the business end because invariably most teams are fighting for something. They're fighting for survival. They're trying to get into the top 4, the top 6, the top 10, whatever. This is probably the only game where you could say nothing is riding on it. Nothing's going to change today with the outcome of this result. Leicester are still going to be in 3rd. Manchester City are still going to be in 2nd. So with that regard, the business end of the season doesn't really come into it. But in saying that, it's still a massive game and there's lots riding on it. But that added pressure that you talk about, I suppose, isn't. I suppose for Manchester City, for them, it's all about closing the gap as much as they can to Liverpool and pulling away from Leicester and sort of trying to shrug Leicester off, you know, off the coattails, so to speak. For Leicester, it's obviously trying to close the gap on Manchester City and try and steal that 2nd place away from them. So obviously there's lots riding on it, but as far as, you know, the pressure of relegation or being getting into the top 4, being put out of the top 4, that doesn't count today.
Yeah, because when you look at Leicester's next few games, it's Norwich away, then it's Aston Villa here, Watford, Brighton, Everton, Palace. These are very winnable games for Leicester, and I know you don't like the term free hit, I get that, but today has a sense of that, as you said, it doesn't necessarily matter too much what happens today.
Yeah, in that regard, there's more riding on those 3 games coming up than there is on this game today. And what I mean by that, the opposition will realise, so there's more riding on those games for the opposition than there will be for Leicester. And that's what makes those games more difficult to play in than, say, earlier on in the season when they go to Villa and turn them over 4-1. You know, there's a lot more riding on the game when Villa come here on a Monday night than there was on that game. And that's where the pressure then counts. That's where that heightened state takes over. It's more in the opposition's view, eye line, than it is at Leicester's. So today, as you say, there's not that extra pressure on Leicester to win. There's not that extra pressure on Man City to win. It's all about distance, keeping their distance and closing the gap. As far as places, as far as relegation and Champions League football, it's not really involved in this game today.
The wind and the rain continues to swirl around King Power Stadium here this evening. We're about half an hour away from kickoff. Let's hope the weather does desist a little bit in that time, so we'll get a reminder of today's team news meanwhile with our commentator John Dunn.
Thank you, Dan. 3 changes then made by Brendan Rodgers following the draw at Wolves 8 days ago. One of those changes enforced. Hamza Chowdhury is out with suspension, and then Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez dropping to the bench. The 3 players to come in are Christian Fuchs, Dennis Praet and Kelechi Iheanacho will start against his former club as Brendan Rodgers switches to a back 3. Kasper Schmeichel then in goal. Johnny Evans, Kaglar Soyuncu and Christian Fuchs are the back 3. Ricardo and Ben Chilwell at wing back. Dennis Praet, Yuri Tillemans and James Maddison through midfield. Iheanacho partnering Jamie Vardy up front. Interesting news on the bench. No place for Ryan Bennett on loan from Wolves, but there is for Matty James. Could play in a Premier League game for the first time in almost 2 years. Danny Ward, James Justin, Wes Morgan, Mark Albrighton, Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez alongside Matty James on the substitutes bench. 3 changes as well for Manchester City, with Nicolas Otamendi, David Silva and Gabriel Jesus dropping to the bench. That was following a 2-0 win against West Ham during the week. Incoming are Fernandinho, Ilkay Gundogan and former Fox Riyad Mahrez. Ederson is the Manchester City goalkeeper. A back 4 right to left. Kyle Walker, Emerick Laporte, Fernandinho and Benjamin Mendy. In midfield is Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan and Rodri. Up front, Mahrez is alongside Sergio Aguero and Bernardo Silva. The City subs are Claudio Bravo, Nicolas Otamendi, John Stones, João Cancelo, David Silva, Phil Foden and Gabriel Jesus.
Thank you very much, John. We'll hear from you again just before kickoff here at King Power Stadium for this Premier League game between Leicester City and Manchester City. Still to come here on Matchday Live on LCFC Radio. We'll hear from both managers, Pep Guardiola and Brendan Rodgers.
You're listening to LCFC Radio.
30 British people stuck on a coronavirus-hit cruise ship in Japan have landed in the UK and are on their way to quarantine. 2 people from Ireland were also on the flight. They'll all spend 14 days in isolation. Meanwhile, the NHS is rolling out COVID-19 testing kits that allow staff to visit suspected cases at their homes. Richard Webber from the College of Paramedics says they'll be more efficient.
The ambulance service is under pressure around the country. Paramedics and ambulance staff are working exceptionally hard. This is only adding to the pressure. By producing this new system, I think we'll actually reduce that.
Tenants in some high-rise blocks say they're being charged extra to replace flammable cladding. The costs are supposed to be met by the building's owners, but a survey's found half have seen service charges rise. Musicians and MPs are among those in the crowds gathered in central London to protest against the extradition trial of Julian Assange. They're calling for the release of the WikiLeaks founder. Blue passports will replace burgundy ones from next month. They're being made by a French-Dutch company in Poland. That's the latest. I'm Kieran Bangle.
The only place you can listen to every Leicester City match online. This is LCFC Radio.
Yes, welcome back to Matchday Live here on LCFC Radio ahead of the Saturday night football in the Premier League, of course, between Leicester City and Manchester City. Man City, though, the away team, obviously they might have one eye on Wednesday night and the Champions League last 16. They travel to the Bernabeu to face Real Madrid. And our opposition view today, Tyrone Marshall from the Manchester Evening News, says that Wednesday will be in the minds of the Man City players.
I think it might do, but not in terms of team selection. I think he'll play pretty much the strongest team he can. Guardiola's always talked about players having this rhythm and getting into a rhythm of playing. He was happy the West Ham game was rearranged for Wednesday so that they had 2 games to build up to Madrid, and I think he sees it more valuable to give the players game time rather than rest them ahead of that. So he wants the players to find some form and find some of that rhythm. Obviously it's been a tricky season so far, even though they're still in second. They're not where they thought they'd be in the league. They've had issues, they've had off days that have just come out of absolutely nowhere. So I think Guardiola will see this as a chance to play his strongest team against a good side and get some form and confidence going into Madrid. They've had some tough games against Leicester in recent seasons, so I think he knows the threat there. He's always been very complimentary of them. He was very complimentary about Jamie Vardy yesterday. Clearly a team he rates, and I think he was very wary of Leicester before Christmas and in the reverse game and the threat they pose on the counter-attack. And they do play a style that really can hurt City. I mean, City, that was one of City's best performances this season, probably that day. But I think Pep knows that Leicester play a style and play in a way that his team have struggled with this season. I don't think Sterling will make it with he's touch and go, I think, for Wednesday night by all accounts. I think if Pep can get him on the pitch at some point today, he would, but I can't see that happening. Obviously Aguero and Jesus played and started and both played the full 90 minutes at the weekend. I'd imagine it'll just be Aguero today, but I mean the man you've got to watch is Kevin De Bruyne. Really, he's been head and shoulders City's best player this season. He was man of the match on Wednesday night by an absolute mile, best player on the pitch by a long way, and I think he's the one you've got to try and stop.
Here's the chance for Albrighton, time to volley in! Leicester City have a second goal and they have 1 foot in the quarter-finals of the Champions League!
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Well, Gerry, I'll ask you the same thing I asked Tyrone there. Will Wednesday play a part, do you think, in the mindset of firstly Pep Guardiola and then the players today?
No, not really. It shouldn't do. You know, they've had 17 days off or 17 days without a game in the lead up to the West Ham game. So 1, they're well rested, and 2, you know, when you have a sequence of games coming along, the players are quite capable of getting their heads around that, and invariably, if you ask the players, they'll probably enjoy that better than going 17 days without a game, because they're in some kind of flow. For almost, the manager knows how to plan ahead for that eventuality when these games do come quick and fast. And so playing game after game, and let's face it, there's good rest days in between the games. I suppose with the West Ham game, there's only 2 days recovery before the game today. But the game's on Wednesday, so you've got Sunday, you've got 3 whole days rest, plus an afternoon before the game on Wednesday night. So that's plenty of time for the players who are already well rested with having the game postponed in the first place. Shouldn't be an issue.
It is a massive game for them though, isn't it, on Wednesday? Because we don't know obviously too much about the details around this potential ban or what might happen there, but the Champions League obviously is such an important, huge trophy that the club wants to win. Pep Guardiola obviously really wants to win it, so it's a massive game for them, isn't it? Real Madrid away, whatever you say about how well or not well they've been this season, that they are top of La Liga still, that they're a very, very good team.
Yeah.
So it's a very tough last 16 game for them.
Yeah, it's the holy grail, isn't it, for Manchester City? They've done everything else as far as domestic football is concerned. They've got another final next week in the League Cup, which are the holders of. They've won the league 4 times, I think it is now, 4 or 5 times now. So, the Champions League for them is the big one. Is
the one that's missing, really.
The one that's missing. So, yeah, and I think Pep Guardiola's come out and said himself that if he doesn't win the Champions League, he'll be viewed as a failure. And that's probably one of the reasons why he was brought in. He didn't do it with Bayern Munich. He's obviously won it with Barcelona, but he's extended his contract here. He spent 3 years at Bayern Munich and then left there to come to Manchester City, and he's extended his contract, so it'll be 5 years when his contract's up. And he cannot concern himself, Pep Guardiola, what's going on off the pitch. All he can concern himself with is what's in front of him and what happens on a football pitch. At the minute, as far as the league is concerned, then that's out of his control. So, and the likelihood is that Liverpool are going to win it and win it by a country mile. So all he now can concern himself with is finishing as close to Liverpool as possible in second place and going as deep and as far as he can in the Champions League. Now, do you rest players for that, or do you have concerns? No, you want players who are at a level, and Pep Guardiola's job then is to keep them on that level for as long, and that's why you get this flow of games that come, and that's why some managers like that, because the players are playing at a level consistently, week in, week out. And so that's why I don't see any concerns for Pep with a game on Wednesday night. He's been through this year in, year out for as long as he's been a manager, so he knows exactly what to do and exactly how to plan for it.
Do you think that could come later on in the competition if they do go deep and reach the semi-final, for example? By that point, you suspect the league will be wrapped up. So at that point, do they then start making the changes, or are you really firmly of the belief that keep the same team, keep them ticking over, to use the word that Tyrone used, keep the rhythm going?
Yeah,
that Pep Guardiola
absolutely. You have to keep players playing. Yes, I know invariably you rest players depending on how they're feeling, but if you've got a full bill of health and you've got everyone ready and wanting to play, then you have to play them because they're on a level. They're playing their standard, and players don't want to fall below that standard, that fitness standard, their mental fitness as well, where they're confident in themselves. You have to keep them at that level, and let's face it, if they go deeper into semi-finals, whatever, then the league games themselves will drop off. There's no more. I don't think there's any more midweek games. There might be the odd Monday night game and stuff like that there, but Man City won't be involved in that if there's a game on a Wednesday in the Champions League semi-final. That won't even come into it. So for them, it's all about keeping a level of fitness, keeping a level of mental fitness as well, and keeping the players fit and confident.
And what better dress rehearsal really for them on Wednesday to be here against a team that are third in the Premier League, that have been brilliant this season, And obviously very good at home.
Yeah, a stern test. There's no doubt about it. And we've seen that Leicester haven't been firing on all cylinders in recent weeks. But again, I think if you listen to James Maddison coming away from Wolves last week with a point was massive after going down to 10 men. So that is a clear indication to me that they're coming into this game full of confidence.
Well, let's hear from their manager then, Pep Guardiola. He's been very complimentary of the way Leicester play.
I said when we played before in our home game how impressed, honestly, not just I know the incredible job has done in Liverpool, but I was not there. I was not here. I saw for him when I was in Celtic in Glasgow, and I saw, wow, this team play good and aggressive and a good vibes. And it's not about the game we play against them here. It's all the season. It's incredible because they have I think, an incredible organization, Leicester, with a good scouting. They know exactly what they have to do, and it's nice to see teams play as good they play for the benefit for the football, for English football. Have this kind of managers and this kind of teams to play in this way. So I think always is nice.
Well, lovely words there from Pep Guardiola to his opposite number, Brendan Rodgers. He said it's great for English football that he's got teams like this that play like this and managers like this.
Absolutely. And I think, Guardiola is one of these people. I think he actually gets excited against playing football matches against teams like Leicester. I think he respects what other managers try and bring to the game. And Brendan Rodgers is obviously one of those managers who's trying to play football the right way. But, I think he enjoys the challenge, Guardiola. He gets more excited against the possibility of getting beat against a team like Leicester than, coming up against, I don't know, a team that sits back for 90 minutes and tries to pinch in 0-0. He'd get more excited about losing to Leicester 3-2, playing football the right way, than winning 1-0 against a team that just sits back for 90 minutes. That's the sort of guy I think he is. And he's really respectful of managers who try and play football the way I suppose the purists say it should be played.
And Brendan Rodgers will also himself really relish playing against Manchester City, playing against Pep Guardiola and putting himself up against the best manager and one of the best managers in the world.
I think you have to. I think you really do have to. You have to go in and say, we've got to enjoy the challenge, enjoy what we're doing, and not worry too much about what may or may not be as regards the outcome of a game. It's whether or not your players, excel in the game, improve in the game. What you see from the sidelines, you're touched by, you're excited by. I think that's the most important thing about when you play against a team like Manchester City. You obviously know that the odds are stacked against you, and so it's all about going out, challenging yourself as individuals, challenge yourself as a manager tactically, and in some strange reason, try and enjoy the occasion.
And can you, as a manager, can you as players, when you used to play against the likes of Arsenal back then and Manchester United when they were obviously at the very peak of their powers,
no.
Could you no?
No. In a word, no. No, because it was a different sort of mindset. I think that's, the new breed of manager is. I would suggest that the new breed of manager is more concerned about performances and results, whereas obviously the stats don't back that up, because if the results don't come, then you're out in your ears as a manager. But I think a lot of managers now appreciate how their team plays more than actually win it. They get more pleasure out of seeing their team play well and how they sort of build that team than they do than just, getting a scrappy 1-0. Even though obviously the results is what counts in football, I think nowadays, because of the way managers are, the wages, let's face it, are pretty high, aren't they, in the modern day game compared to 20, 30 years ago. Then you concentrate on what's really important, and that's the style of football that you put out there on the pitch.
Well, both sets of players have headed down the tunnel now into the dressing rooms for their final words from the managers. It's all focused now. I wonder if Brendan will be using that result in December as part of his team talk, and he's been speaking, though, about the lessons he learned from that reverse fixture.
Well, we were too passive in the game. I think that was pretty clear. We got a great start in the game, but we didn't press the game hard enough and well enough at times. Manchester, a fantastic team that force you back into a defensive shape, but you can still. They have to feel your shirt. They have to feel the aggression of the team, and that's something that we spoke about after that game. And then once you then have the ball, you have to have that ability to play quickly, and you know that you can have an opportunity that once you break the press, there's space there to play in. But now that's always easier said than done against a top level team.
It's great to hear Brendan Rodgers there, Gerry, speaking about the ways that they can beat Manchester City. He says if you beat that press, you can really expose them. You can expose the likes of Fernandinho at centre half.
Yeah, we've talked about it, man. We've seen it at the Etihad. You beat the press, then they leave gaps because they play so high up the pitch. Then the gaps are always in behind the back line, and that's exactly what we've seen at the Etihad. Good, quick, incisive, forward-thinking football. Bodies in behind. Thank you very much. 1-0 up. But you also on the flip side, there were for far too long in that game. There were passengers in it. They were ball watchers. They weren't getting physical. They weren't getting the Manchester City's, in the line of fire and trying to stop them play their football. And at times it was too easy. And the one case in point was the first goal, where Mahrez had too much time out on the right-hand side. And that's exactly where his equalising goal came from, was him coming inside, getting a deflected shot away, wrong foot and Schmeichel. Thank you very much. So things like that have to change today if Leicester are going to win this.
You talked about Jamie Vardy and getting in behind today. Is he the type of player, do you think, that will look at the two central defenders? Obviously Fernandinho is a fantastic midfielder, has been in the Premier League for all the years that he's been here, but he is a midfielder. He isn't a central defender. So will Jamie Vardy be peeling off as much as he can onto Fernandinho?
I think so. I think, a key ploy when you're playing is you got to pick out the weak parts of the opposition's game. And obviously running back towards his own goal is a weakness that Fernandinho has. He's not the quickest anyway. And playing midfield, playing that holding role on your own in midfield is completely different to playing centre half with a partner, because you rely so heavily on each other. And when that communication and when isn't there between the two centre halves, you become exposed very, very quickly. When you're a midfielder and the ball goes in behind you, you've got the two centre halves to help you mop up. But when you're a centre half and you get exposed, it's the goal and the keeper. It's the last line. That's the only thing that's stopping the team from scoring, and that's the difference. So it's a completely different position to play in midfield, even though you're effectively doing the same sort of job, which is breaking stuff up, winning challenges, winning headers, and sort of patrolling a certain area of the pitch. In that respect, it's similar. But playing centre half all relies on a partnership, and the two of you or the three of you being coherent at all times.
Well, Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about his number 9 in the build-up to the game, about how to get the best out of Jamie Vardy.
It's a bit of both, really. It's helping Jamie understand, the importance of him and his game, but then, like you say, the players around him creating those opportunities. So yeah, but I've got no doubt he's been unfortunate. When he had the injury, it took a little bit of time to come back, and which is natural. And then, like you say, there's been some opportunities, but just hasn't quite gone his way. So, but as long as Jamie works tirelessly as he always does, and he keeps making those runs and threatens him behind, then there's absolutely no doubt he'll get back on the goal trail again.
The nice little subplot as well, Gerry, is Kelechi Iheanacho against his former club as well, up there with Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, no one's even mentioned that. And I say Kelechi's in recent weeks has done really well and deserves a start today. There's no doubt about that in my mind. You know, as I said, he was unlucky not to get minutes on the pitch, probably because of the sending off. But today he finds himself starting the game against his old club, so a massive opportunity again. And we've seen that partnership between the pair of them work. We've seen it work at Aston Villa when they played a similar style, or the same style as what they're playing today. So, you know, Kelechi, if he keeps working in that same vein as he has been doing, then upside along Jamie Vardy, I have no doubt that they will cause problems for Man City's backline.
And he has proved when he's played Kelechi and Nacho, whether it's been off the bench or whether it's been from the start, this season he has proved that he can score goals, he can affect games, he can create goals.
His goal scoring record is fantastic, whether it's starting or coming off the bench, there's no doubt about it. It's all about the individual himself, his confidence levels, how he feels. You know, so if he's feeling up for it and he's feeling strong and confident,
and surely he is against his old club.
Well, you would expect so, wouldn't you? That is good. You would expect him to be up for this one. You know, I'm sure he's got a lot of friends here. He probably knows a lot of supporters at the club, and the one thing he won't want to do is let down his teammates today against his former club.
There's a palpable sense of excitement, isn't there, right now, Joey, around this ground, because everyone knows this is second versus third, and it has all the makings of being another cracker between these two teams.
Yeah, and absolutely. I say invariably here, they're great games of football. Both teams, you know, play their part in that. It's not always down to one team taking control and run away with it. It's two teams going for it. And fingers crossed we'll get that again tonight.
You'd think we would, don't you? You think it will be a case of that both teams will want to come out, both teams will want to impress, both teams will want to score goals.
Absolutely. That's the mindset of both managers. That's the philosophy of both managers, is to go out and win games by scoring goals, not by sitting back and playing counter-attacking football or nicking it from a set piece. It's all about going out and beating the opposition by playing good, attractive, forward-thinking football. And that, when you have two managers that think along those lines, invariably, you get the spectacles that we have seen here in the past.
Fernandinho is in the tunnel, ready to lead his Manchester City side out for this game this evening. A reminder that if you're listening in on social media, the feeds will stop just before kickoff. All you need to do, though, is head to lcfc.com/radio to listen to the whole game, of course, available for free. But it is indeed now time to hand you over to your commentary team this evening of Gerry Taggart and John Dunn.
Madison! Oh, that is absolutely brilliant! And it's a beauty! Jamie Vardy again for Leicester City. He's up and running. What a fantastic goal!
Touch, back of the net.
Come on. There's a somersault to celebrate with the travelling Blue Army.
All the games, all the goals, and all the big moments. You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Welcome to King Power Stadium, where the weather might be wet and wild, but it hasn't put off the Blue Army making the pilgrimage to King Power Stadium to witness yet another top-of-the-table clash at their home stadium. They've wrapped themselves up, they've braved the conditions, and they are taking their seats ahead of this huge Premier League game. The two players starting to gather in the tunnel area. The pitch immaculate ahead of them. The rain seems to have eased up, but the wind has been whipping around the stadium, and it all sets up for what should be a fascinating Premier League tie. Second place very much up for grabs. Flag's been waved around the tunnel area and in the centre circle for the Fox, getting the supporters in the mood and ready to find their voices to cheer on Leicester City to what they hope will be another 3 valuable points in their march towards Champions League football next season. Side by side as they start to head up towards the end of the tunnel, the two players just waiting for the final word from the referee. Leicester have had a good recent record against Manchester City here at King Power Stadium. And here they come, side by side, emerging from the tunnel into a sold-out King Power Stadium. Side by side as well at the top end of the Premier League. It's third place Leicester City against second place Manchester City here at the home of the Foxes. Just 4 points separate the two cities ahead of this evening's game. The Foxes, knowing a win, will open up a real race for the Premier League runners-up spot, with the season's end now very much in sight. Manchester City haven't enjoyed trips to King Power Stadium in recent seasons. The Foxes have been beaten once in 6 games here against the Sky Blues, including a win against the champions here last season. Pep Guardiola's side start a busy week in the wind and rain of Leicestershire before moving on to the Champions League and on to a trip to Madrid during the week. Following that, they move on to Wembley and a League Cup final next weekend. All this with the off-field backdrop of Manchester City's potential UEFA ban. Not only is this third place versus second place, it's also the third best defence in the Premier League against the Premier League's highest scorers. Leicester were in action 8 days ago. It was a goalless draw at Molineux against Wolves, and Brendan Rodgers makes 3 changes to the starting 11. He also changes the formation with a switch to a back 3. Hamza Chowdhury out through suspension is an enforced change. Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez dropping to the bench, meaning that Christian Fuchs, Dennis Praet and against his former club Kelechi Iheanacho start this evening's game at King Power Stadium. No place then for lone recruit Ryan Bennett, but there is for Matty James. He's amongst the substitutes, having not played a Premier League game for almost 2 years following that lengthy injury absence. Pep Guardiola also makes 3 changes. They were in action during the week. It was a rather routine victory at home to West Ham United. David Silva, Gabriel Jesus and Nicolas Otamendi dropped to the substitutes bench. Coming in are Fernandinho, Ilkay Gundogan and former Leicester City favourite Riyad Mahrez. Leicester line up then with Schmeichel in goal, Evans, Soyuncu and Fuchs as a back 3. Ricardo and Chilwell the wing-backs. Pratt, Tillemans and Maddison in midfield. Vardy alongside Iheanacho in attack. And for the visitors, it's Ederson, the goalkeeper. And across the back line, Walker, Laporte, Fernandinho and Mendy. Rodri, Gundogan and De Bruyne in midfield. Mahrez, Aguero and Silva as a front 3. It is, of course, the Gerry Taggart derby, a man with a foot in both camps. Or maybe in Leicester's case, a foot and a leg, Gerry.
Yeah.
We went to Etihad Stadium in December. We were all very confident Leicester could come away with something. Not to be the case, but has Brendan Rodgers learnt enough from that game to maybe get the 3 points and to feed that optimism again this evening?
Yeah, without a doubt. He'll have learnt a lot from that game. You just listened to him a few moments ago in his interview about what went wrong, what they could do better, and also how they can beat Manchester City. You know, I think it's important that, you know, he talked about beating the press. That means they have to keep possession of the ball better in tighter areas, which they didn't do in the Etihad, and also maximising the opportunities that they're going to get. With Iheanacho up alongside Jamie Vardy, then they're giving themselves a damn good chance of doing that.
We are ready to get underway at King Power Stadium.